Hello, and welcome to my channel, your go-to destination for all things education related. I am Lana, the educator. Thank you for tuning in. Come explore the latest educational trends, tackle pressing issues facing the education sector, and share stories of triumph and innovation from classrooms around the globe. In this segment of Teachers Have Issues, Yes, I'll be looking at the issue of relational aggression and how it impacts our interactions with others. You learn about the signs to look for and how to navigate these challenging dynamics in our own relationships. Did you know that there's a dark side to relationships in the workplace that you may never even have heard of? It's called relational aggression. And this is a form of bullying that involves using relationships to manipulate and hurt others. It can be subtle, like spreading rumors or giving someone the silent treatment. And it involves deliberate attempts by individuals or groups in the workplace to undermine the social relationships of their colleagues. Sadly, this behavior has become increasingly prevalent in the workplace and in the teaching profession, manifesting as gossiping, isolation, creating unwanted nicknames, giving dirty looks, and divulging secrets, and even worse, public humiliation. This type of aggression can have serious consequences on a person's mental health, as you can imagine. It can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and even low self-esteem. If you've ever been a victim of relational aggression, then you know that you're not alone. Now, you're listening to this and you might already be scandalized to know that this behavior is widespread in the teaching profession as well. It really is everywhere, but it being in the teaching profession is particularly concerning because you might be thinking, teachers getting on like this with each other, they're not supposed to be role models? And yes, it is true. Teachers, I do believe, have a moral and ethical responsibility, as I said from my first podcast. And this issue is so pervasive, and it's more pervasive than you would expect. But if you think about it, you have a profession that is dominated by women. About 76% of teachers are female. So you are naturally going to see higher rates of relational aggression. And this is not to bash females at all. I'm simply referring to research that consistently found that females tend to utilize more indirect and social forms of aggression from a young age. And this is research coming from 2020 to 22 from Salin and Osgood and Collier. Now, don't make any mistake, relational aggression can be just as impactful and scarring as physical aggression. And I'm talking about insidious behaviors like social exclusion, malicious gossip, and rumor spreading, undermining the credibility of others, or manipulating relationships as a means of retaliation. I'm sure as I'm speaking, you're probably thinking about some people you know or some things that you've seen in the workplace yourself. Does this sound like the type of behavior you would expect from grown adults, much less teachers, right? Does it? So the podcast today is really to prepare you. You're really not going to escape from it as adults, unfortunately. What we have to do is find ways to address it, mitigate it. And if we can stamp it out in the workplace, at least, then we'll be making progress. Now, it would obviously be ridiculous for me to claim that all teachers engage in relationally aggressive conduct. Most people, most educators I know, most teachers I know are professionals. They are passionate. They try to make a difference. But I'd be lying if I didn't let you know how rampant this juvenile type of behavior is, these juvenile antics like relational aggression, and how it can become, just rampant in particular school environments. So I'm here to tell you, yes, most jobs are stressful, and teaching is particularly stressful in the frustrations that teachers have to deal with, and the decisions that they have to make on a day-by-day basis. So imagine mixing these pressures with the school hierarchy and gender dynamics, and then you have this kind of volatile environment being created, which is primed for relationally aggressive behavior, right? And this really begins to show you the underbelly of so many workplaces. And you might have seen it in your own workplace. You just have this group of teachers getting very cliquey, and then they begin to purposefully exclude someone. It might be a new teacher or someone who actually used to be in their friend group. And me saying all of this might actually bring back memories of high school for you, secondary school. Whatever the instigation, the end result of everything that happens is hurt feelings, low morale, an unhealthy work culture, and that distracts from the core mission of what we as educators are there to do. So, as someone who's witnessed this firsthand, what's really sad about it, what's really, really sad is that the students see it. They pick up on those tensions that divide their teachers. So not only does it make the school a miserable place for staff, obviously this feeling and this atmosphere trickles down to the students, and it negatively impacts the classroom dynamics as well. So I think we can all agree that this is not exactly ideal for fostering a nurturing learning environment. Now, I'm obviously not here to backtalk teachers, but as I said before, this is a real issue. This is an issue that we are facing in the teaching profession. And the vast majority of teachers are kind-hearted people, right? But I have to spotlight relational aggression because teachers of all people, I think, should set the example. If the trusted adult figures who people entrust their children to, if these figures can't model healthy conflict resolution and communicate like professionals, those children really don't have much of a chance in the learning environment to develop those vital skills themselves. And this issue was so concerning to me that I did a research paper on it. I conducted research, and the title of my research paper was What Leadership Style is Most Effective in Mitigating Relational Aggression. Because it is such an issue that when you watch people try to deal with it in the workplace, there's really not many things you can do for such covert acts, right? Nasty looks, gossiping. How can you measure that? How can you quantify that? So it becomes a very tricky thing. So my hypothesis was that, it has to be dealt with at the leadership level. And I undertook this study because I found that relational aggression was an issue that's threatening the healthy work environment. It seemed like relational aggression became this evolution of the practice of those mean girls you would have been familiar with from your secondary school days or your high school days. And my paper looked at identifying effective leadership strategies to address the aggression and improve the workplace relationships and the employees' well-being and the organizational performance as we went by. And what I found was that really leadership style, particularly transformational leadership, significantly influences the workplace relational aggression. Education and training of the managers played a crucial role in this, in addressing and mitigating this kind of aggression in the workplace, right? But what it required was that organizations invest in their leadership development in order to foster healthy workplace environments. Now, tell me if this doesn't sound familiar to you. We want to get to leaders being the ones to address this issue in the workplace. But listen to these two testimonials from two persons online, one from on YouTube, who said, I'm here today to seek guidance on dealing with, I guess, bullies at work. I am 23 years old and started my first job after finishing university. I am the youngest person at my workplace and no one near my age bracket. Also, it seems the people there has been there for a long time. It's a tight clique. The problem begins with the way they speak to me. It is always condescending or rude or disrespectful. Every day there's a comment on my clothing, my shoes. They make comments and laugh, and I feel my voice betray me and I disappear. How can I stand up for myself? How do I get the courage to speak up? I must admit that I'm not presenting my best image, as most of my clothes and shoes are my mother's, and we're different sizes. The difference is clear, but it's only been 2 weeks and the plan was to boost my wardrobe after my first pay. I was very excited to start this job, but the last 2 weeks have made me feel so horrible and has put a spotlight on my economic situation. I honestly want to quit. How do I stay motivated? Do you think it will get better? Now listen to the hurt and the plea in that. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Have you witnessed this behavior? I certainly have. And I certainly hope that you do not engage in this behavior. I think we all have been there in terms of those first few weeks at your first job when your wardrobe for work is really in need of an upgrade. It's just atrocious. And I look back at myself at my first job and I remember those cheap outfits on catwalk and just rotating those skirts and shirts and pants over the work week. So when I see new teachers coming in, I smile a little because even though it does cross my mind that some of their work attire looks confusing or looks inappropriate for work and all of that, but then I remember that I was there once. So the response of this lady's co-worker shows a lack of sympathy and empathy and a high level of immaturity. It also highlights how helpless and lost most people who face relational aggression feel. Here's another example that shows how pervasive the issue is. This one came off of Facebook from an Ask Phonics page that one of my friends put onto me after she had read my blog article on relational aggression. The responder commenter said, the two co-workers I have with known each other since they were 19, go on smoke breaks together and know all of the same friends. So of course I didn't fit in so much already. I've worked here for 6 months and I guess I thought I might start to fit in by now. But that is not the case. One coworker in particular does not want me to fit in, ever. And she makes a point to let me know that. One day she'll be kind to me and the next she'll be a complete B. Trying to kill her with kindness hasn't worked, and finally I talked with my boss about the situation due to the fact that I was going home crying half the time. He said that my age was a factor in the way they all acted around me, that they don't know how to act around me. They wouldn't hang out with me outside of work because we wouldn't have anything in common, so they don't know how to act around me at work. Since this conversation, one coworker has not talked to me at all. I don't want to work at a place I am not wanted, but I need money. My boss said he would talk to me later about the issue and has not. What should I do? I don't think it is right to be treated like crap because I'm 10 years younger than everyone. Is it age discrimination when I am young, 20 years? Again, listen to the pleading, listen to how this person has come onto social media because they don't know who to talk to about the issue, how to address the issue. This is a common scenario in many workplaces, but I want you to take note of her first step, which was to inform her superior, right? She started to figure it out, which is weeks after, she said, because she's been in the workplace for a little bit. And this is usually the case because you really don't see relational aggression from the get-go because it is so covert. And then take note of how the manager responded. And we'll get back to this in a little bit, the manager's response. Once you've had any experience whatsoever in a workplace setting, you know that personalities will inevitably clash. But there's a huge gap between occasionally butting heads and systematic and systemic relational aggression that we see in these two testimonials highlighted by these two persons on social media, and they're both female. And this type of systemic relational aggression creates a hostile environment. And it's so insidious because it is not overt acts. And I'm doing this podcast because I think it's time we start to collectively protest the malicious juvenile nonsense for what it is whenever those situations arise. A noteworthy problem is that victims of relational aggression often make verbal complaints to middle management or their supervisors and even to other co-workers, just like we read in one of the scenarios above. But the workers express dissatisfaction with the response, with the help, or with the support, if any, they receive from management. Look at what the commenter said. The manager, she told the manager, and the manager was yet still to get back to her. So there's a big gap between incidents and addressing the incidents, which again continues to cause problems in the workplace. So, management's willingness to intervene sometimes varies because of the perceived reason for the aggression. It might vary because of whether they're looking at the increased reports or whether they're conducting proper investigations. The investigations might be improper. They themselves are not well trained to be able to deal with such issues that don't have any physical or visible impact. And the most worrisome realization that is that managers find it difficult to track the behavior or source the records of incidents. And they are either reluctant to, or they are not trained or ill-equipped. They don't have the training to address the issue. And this has serious impact in the long term. If we stop and look at what these two commenters have described, what I have defined as relational aggression, then you can see in the long run how this can lead to high turnover, especially as it relates to your best performer in the workplace. And it's usually the young persons coming into the workplace, the high achievers, the persons who are trying to do their job to the best of their ability, persons who are praised, who face this kind of relational aggression. It's usually directed at them, and it's usually directed at them if they are female. And then this leads to low motivation. Then you have your best performer having decreased productivity. They're increasingly agitated. They're dissatisfied in work. They've lost the innovation and creativity that you hired them for. And all of this spirals into increase and severe stress. And then it leads to absenteeism and burnout. And this is so widespread, it's supported by research. Callier's research in 2021, research in modern times as well, recent years have found the same thing: bullying and relational aggression increasing in the workplace. And if you were thinking of your own workplace while you listened to my reading of the comments of these two women on social media and what you've witnessed there, then you would probably have seen that those persons who experience relational aggression are usually isolated from their peers, and they're made to feel bad, or they're treated as if they are a threat. And yes, research does show that persons who experience relational aggression are perceived as a threat. And sometimes it's for reasons we might consider ridiculous. They've done well, or they were praised, or they dressed well, or they did a project well, or, they've brought praise to their organization. These things, just like in high school, cause these persons to be isolated from their peers. And the effect of this is that these previously motivated and high-performing employees start exhibiting physical and psychosomatic symptoms, and that eventually reduces organizational effectiveness, because what you find is that it usually would not only remain with one person. The behavior is not only exhibited or perpetuated against one person, but also others in the workplace, and then it becomes part of the workplace culture. So getting to the crux of this podcast, how to deal with relational aggression. Now, dealing with relational aggression is going to be challenging, I'm telling you that, because it is often brushed under the rug. And you probably have seen this in your workplace. If you have faced relational aggression, you probably have given up because you think they're not going to do anything about it, right? But there are some strategies that you can employ that can help you. And the second testimonial actually highlighted the first two steps. The individual began to understand what relational aggression is, and that's the first step. Those behaviors that are aimed at damaging relationships or social standing, the gossiping, the exclusion, the spreading rumors, the teasing, the manipulating friendships, that is a form of bullying that can be subtle and it's difficult to detect. So it might take you a while to figure out that it's happening, but the first step is understanding what it is and recognize that it is happening to you and it is wrong. The second step is to document the incidents. Keep a record of any instances. Send emails as a form of recording it to your manager, your supervisors, and emails to yourself if you need to. Write it down if you need to. Take the date, include the time, and specific details of what happened. This documentation can be useful if you need to take the issue further or seek assistance from human resources or human resource management. Now, this is an issue for teachers, especially in the Caribbean, because we don't really have a formalized human resource department, which means it's very difficult to deal with this particular issue because there are no formal policies in place. The third step is to communicate directly. And yes, you have to do this because you have to let people know that you are aware of what is taking place. If you feel comfortable and safe doing so, you can consider having a respectful conversation with the person who is engaging in this behavior. And it is aggressive behavior. Passive as it might seem, it is aggressive behavior, passive aggressive behavior. And the person might have been so accustomed to doing it that it becomes their natural way of dealing with people in the workplace. And it is still not right because they might say things to you like, but that's how the place is, that's how I am. It is not right because you do not feel safe and you do not feel respected there, right? So you have to communicate directly with the person, explain their actions and how the actions make you feel and request that they stop. But you have to be prepared that they may deny that they're doing anything, right? Because it is the nature of the personality, right? They may deny or minimize their behavior. And bullies and narcissists usually don't take well to people communicating directly or confronting them sometimes. So just be aware of that, but do not be afraid. Communicating directly does not guarantee that it's going to change because some of these people will take this as information that they are getting under your skin, that their harassment is working, or they will take it as an opportunity to continue to be disrespectful because that is what they want to do. Something about you bothers them and they need to harass you. So bear that in mind and fortify yourself for it. The fourth step is to build a support network because you're not getting it in the workplace, right? This is the reason you are here talking about relational aggression. So surround yourself with positive and supporting people outside of the work as well. Create a thriving and vibrant social life. Engage in self-care. Talk to someone, vent to someone outside of work about this. Because you may begin to doubt your own mind. You may begin to think you deserve this. You start to remain in your own head. Well, I must have done something wrong. No. If you speak to someone who is objective and removed from what's taking place in the workplace, you can bounce off of them the fact that what's taking place is not right and you do not deserve to be treated this way. If you can build a support network within the workplace with supportive colleagues. So you find a group and there's strength in numbers who can provide emotional support and validation. But you know, there might be a queen bee mean girl in there, and others might be afraid of crossing that person, just like in secondary school. So it is important for you to build a support network wherever you can because I am here to tell you isolation is the goal of these people. Isolation is the goal of relational aggression. They see you as a threat and they don't want anyone else to become your friend or to surround themselves because it is all about social transaction. It's all about who is the king or queen of the social environment. These people see you as a threat and can be for any number of reasons. It might be because you're high performing, because you're young and your concerns and your suspicions are very much legitimate. But you might be doubting yourself because you think this is such a ridiculous thing and a ridiculous reason for them to be treating you this way, but not to them. It may be because you receive praise, right? So maintaining strong relationships can be helpful. And school would have taught you that this offers a respite from the harassment. There is strength in unity, and it gives you a place to vent and share your experiences, and also to have witnesses, right? Because when you report to management, they'll say, oh, nobody else is reporting this. Nobody saw this happen. And listen, what is it sounding like? Like you're a victim, right? Things happening to you, and people saying because no one saw it or because it's not happening to anybody else, that the conclusion they're coming to is that it's not happening at all. And that is not right. That causes further mental distress on you. So you of course have to report the behavior. This is your fifth step. If the relational aggression persists or escalates, you're going to have to report it to your supervisor, to human resources, or follow whatever established complaint procedures in your workplace. The tricky thing is, in teaching, as I said before, we don't have these formalized procedures to tackle such an invisible epidemic. But still report it, let people know. Provide the specific examples, document it, right? This is why it's important, I think, for us in the education sector to tie performance reports to outcomes in teaching. Confidential reports should not simply be done because you want to have money. You have to look at outcomes and behaviors and performance objectives, and your relationship with your colleagues should be part of that. The sixth step, seek counseling or mediation. Consider seeking professional counseling to help you cope with the emotional impact of relational aggression and to help you develop effective communication strategies. Now, I know the stigma around mental health and how a lot of people in the Caribbean view counseling and psychology and mental health. And sometimes, to be fair, it can be very expensive, but there are programs I know in many regions and countries, and even here in our own country, there is the Employee Assistance Program, which provides free sessions with respect to mental health. And it is quite useful. This is something I think should be known and done in the onboarding process, which is again an issue teachers face in the workplace, as onboarding really needs to be done in a formalized manner. So you can check out my podcast on onboarding as well. The seventh step in dealing with relational aggression is promoting a positive work culture. And this relates not just to you because you'd be dealing with a lot as well as an individual, but if you're in a leadership position, you can take proactive steps to foster this inclusive workplace and a respectful environment, because sometimes you have to be firm. And this brings me back to what I observed in the workplaces where I was employed before. And what I looked at was, yes, a lot of people were going through the scenarios of the two people who give their testimonials there that I read earlier on. And what I found was that a lot of it has to do with the leadership not stepping up and addressing the issue in the workplace. Policies need to be implemented. Training programs need to be implemented to prevent the relational aggression. And many persons in position of management are managers, not leaders. And they figure if it's not a big problem, if it isn't broke, if the company isn't broke, then why do they need to fix it? But the thing is, your employee is being broken, and that needs to be fixed. Many offer lip service, but they have no way of dealing with relational aggression. None. And they find it difficult to track and address, so they avoid it altogether, or they follow up with it, as you saw in the second testimonial, and then they don't address the issue. They tell the person who is facing the relational aggression that it might be because, well, they don't understand you, you know. And as the testimonial, the person who gave the testimony said, they made attempts to be friendly. They made attempts to do so. So you cannot force people to be decent and kind. So management stepping in and creating a positive workplace culture by addressing and taking proactive steps to foster a respectful environment can greatly help with this. The failure to address this issue of relational aggression really causes long-term problems, like a toxic work environment which many people are complaining about these days, and people seem to just exist in this toxicity. And what you have is increased stress, stressful environments, then the behavior becomes worse, and then you have people taking more sick days and leave. And this, as I'm saying it to you, if you work in a school, if you work in education, I'm sure you see it happening right in front of you. So remember, relational aggression can have severe emotional and professional consequences, and no one should have to endure it in the workplace. And nobody just simply wants to hear, well, you shouldn't have to endure that in the workplace, because if I had to hear that, I would be very frustrated, because the reason I would be there in front of you speaking to you is because I want you to address it. People are adults. They've probably, as the commenter stated, they probably try their own way of dealing with it and nothing works. So they don't want to hear that, it's a difficult issue for us to deal with. They are there in front of you because they want you to do something about it in the workplace. So by taking appropriate action and seeking support, you can protect yourself and contribute to creating a healthier work environment for all. Because this relational aggression can really lead to serious problems. And you will see it unfolding in your workplace until it becomes the work culture, as I said before. You have emotional distress of your employees, which you might not be able to see from the get-go, right? But it might manifest itself in anxiety and depression and low self-esteem. And this constant exclusion and gossiping and manipulation is going to take a significant toll on their mental health and well-being. And you are going to complain that they're taking days off, too many days off, but this is where it's coming from. Then you're going to have decreased productivity and the workplace is going to be disrupted, right? And then you're going to have a high turnover rate if people become fed up and they can't exist and work in this workplace anymore. And moreover, you're damaging the workplace culture. The workplace is going to develop a bad reputation because people are going to spread the word about what type of place it is, a place characterized by fear and mistrust and hostility. And it's going to make it difficult to attract and retain top talent, because the top talent are the ones, usually, especially if they're female, facing relational aggression. So there goes your reputation out the door. And not to mention the health problems that relational aggression victims face. Headaches and stomach issues and sleep disturbances due to the chronic stress and anxiety caused by the aggressive behavior in the workplace. The workplace is one of the secondary places where people spend most of their time. It's work, school, and home for many people. That's where they spend most of their time. So to be existing in an environment where there is aggression and mistrust and bullying and gossiping and cliques really is a horrible experience. So addressing relational aggression is crucial to prevent these negative consequences and foster a positive and a productive and a respectful work environment for all employees. It's important to speak up and seek help from a trusted friend. And if you witness relational aggression happening to someone, don't be a bystander. Stand up for them and offer support. Let's work together to create a world where healthy, positive relationships thrive and relational aggression is a thing of the past. The teachers perpetuating such toxicity might need a little refresher on the virtues they're meant to be imparting. And we can probably start doing this with a code of conduct for teachers that is highlighted and reviewed in the onboarding process. At the end of the day, everyone deserves to work in a setting of mutual respect where they can focus on the real priorities shaping young minds and sparking that hunger for learning, not reliving their own secondary school drama in the staff room. So let's start having more honest conversations about this. Staying quiet might preserve harmony temporarily, but sweeping interpersonal toxicity under the rug only perpetuates the problem in the long run. Our students are watching. We owe it to them and each other to set a better example. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to understanding the complexities of human relationships. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You empower minds, you ignite curiosity. You have been listening to Lana, the educator.